Revelation chapter 12 is pivotal to understanding Revelation. It's not the only thing. There's other things like knowing who your God is, and Revelation chapter 13, 18 is a good one. That really helps you to understand and grasp Revelation a whole lot better. But so does 12. So does chapter 12. And I'm going to show I'm going to come at this two different ways, showing that just what time frame chapter 12 is referring to. One is I'm just going to go from verses from other chapters in Revelation, and then by the context of Revelation 12 itself. So where would be the best place to start? If we just start at actually Revelation 5:1, and remember that what Revelation is about, the revelation of Jesus Christ, the uncovering, the revealing of Jesus Christ, God's Son. Keeping that always in mind, it says in Revelation chapter 5 verse 1, "And I saw in the right hand of him that sat upon the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with 7 seals." And what am I reading this out of? I'm reading this out of the King James Version. You want to use ESV or American or anything else, that's fine. I'm just going to be reading out of whatever I grab. I don't care. It all works out. So now, did you notice here, it mentions, written on, like on the inside and on the outside, or within and on the back side. Why? Why would you need to even mention that? What would be the importance of mentioning that? Because God only gives us what's needed for us to know, or given to us to what's given to us to understand. So he's saying it's written here on the inside and on the outside. So it's written on 2 sides. And if you imagine a scroll, it's 2 split in half, right? Divided in half. On one side and the other side. So we have that, and this is not, what it's saying here is important. It's written on the inside and the outside. But this next thing I'm going to say is it's not the deciding factor, but it all adds up and plays into it. And, Revelation is a 22 chapter book. What would be the beginning of the second half, right? Would be Revelation 12 verse 1 is the beginning of the second half. It's divided in half. That's a possibility. But we're going to get something a little stronger here, and we're going to go to Revelation chapter 10. And if you remember there, he says, verse 2, "And he had in his right hand a little book, a little scroll," which also is the scroll that we read in chapter 5 verse 1. "And he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth." So here he's talking about that little book that he has, that Jesus had just opened all the seals, and the 6 trumpets were right between the 6th trumpet and the 7th trumpet when this is written and spoken, right? Okay, so I'll start at verse 5. "And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his right hand to heaven and swore by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in." Well, I'm reading this out of the King James, so this is written a little oddly here. "And the things that therein are, and the earth, and the things that therein are, and the sea, and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer." Right now, this is echoing back to Exodus 20, right? The 10 Commandments. No, this is not about worshiping, whether you worship on the Sabbath day or anything. It's nothing to do with that. But listen, what it does have to do with. We'll start at verse 8. Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea. We've got heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and hallowed it. Right? What is the seventh day? Is the day of our rest. Right? When's the day of our rest? When Christ returns. Correct? The last trumpet. And we're going to see the last trumpet is the last trumpet. Or the seventh trumpet is the last trumpet. So we can see then that him that, going back to Revelation chapter 10 verse 6, and swore by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven, right, and the earth, and the sea, and all that is in them, right, that there should be delay, there should be time no longer, there should be, delay no longer. Right? For what? For our rest. For Christ's return. And if we jump back to verse 6, the fifth seal, I believe it is. Yeah. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto them, or unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. Right? Remember, this is just before. This is in the time of those two prophets, which would be killed and resurrected. So they're waiting, right? They're waiting for that resurrection, for the judgment. Let's go back. So that there should be time no longer, referring to the rest, the return of Christ, a resurrection. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, right? This is referring to the seventh trumpet, the last trumpet. 1 Corinthians 15 says, Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. So the dead go first. And we shall be changed. Right, so it's at the last trumpet. But anyways, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he's about to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. So what is this saying? You can hear he's saying this is the end of the age. Right? The end of the age is coming. The end, the times of the Gentiles has come to the end, right? The mystery. It was a great mystery that God should turn to the Gentiles, or include the Gentiles in with Israel. Right? So that's one big group of Israel. There's an Israel, spiritual Israel, and there's a physical Israel. One has not replaced the other. Right? It's one Israel. There's the bloodline Israel, and then there's the Israel where all are included, with the spiritual Israel, but they're all going to be combined into one anyways. Like, there's not going to be two separate Israels. They're really one. It's just that at this particular time, the Gentiles have been included with Israel. But it doesn't replace Israel, because they still got to return to Canaan, as it speaks in Genesis 15. Now, Abraham's terrifying dark dream, right? They are in Canaan, And then in that dream, they were told that they're going to be sent off to Egypt, and then that they're going to return to Canaan. And that's exactly what we read in Revelation. You see in Revelation 20, right? That Christ returns back again to Israel, the nation, the bloodline Israel. And the spiritual Israel is ruling over all that. Oh yeah, so let's look up mystery. We'll look up mystery. Oh, it's Mark 4:11. That's kind of interesting. I could just read it. And he said unto them, unto you it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God, but unto them that are without, all these things are done in parables. Romans 11:25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceit, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. So that means what it means. The time of the Gentiles will come to an end, and then it's going to turn again back to the bloodline Israel, as if you want, or the Israel of the law, or however you want to phrase that. So now to him that is of power to establish you according to my gospel and the preaching of Jesus Christ according to the revelation of the mystery which was kept secret since the world began, but now is made manifest, and by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God, made known to all nations for the obedience of faith. How that by revelation he made known unto me the mystery, as I wrote afore in a few words, whereby when you read ye may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Christ, which in other ages was not made known unto the sons of men, as it is now revealed unto his holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit, that the Gentiles should be fellow heirs and of the same body, and partakers of his promises in Christ by the gospel. Right? So the mystery is the Gentiles were added in. So that's the mystery. The mystery, the Gentiles. And the end of the age, when the time of the Gentiles are over, then returns to Israel. I mean, even though we're a part of Israel in the same body, but there's still a remnant of Israel that needs to come in. And then all Israel will be saved, right? Because there's one Israel, but it's kind of, it's divided. Whereas the believing Israel and the unbelieving Israel, right? And the believing Israel is made up of both Jews and Gentiles. The unbelieving Israel is made up of Jews. So there's one there where he says, so then when the seventh trumpet is about to sound, then there'll be time no longer. Then the mystery of God should be finished, as he had declared to his servants, the prophets. Well, here he is. He's taken that little book, and he's eaten it, sweet and bitter, and he's told, and he said unto me, thou must prophesy again. Right? Again, here is oscillatory repetition. Repeat over again before many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. So he's repeated over again. And this is just before the seventh trumpet. Right? And then you have those two witnesses. They're slain and then raised right at the seventh trumpet there. Resurrected at the seventh trumpet. So now if we go, so that was some verses that we just seen that show that Revelation 12 is starting over again. And if you notice in Revelation chapter 5, this is about Christ being raised to the throne as a lamb just slain or something, or a lamb slain. Let me see, Revelation 5:5. And one of the elders said to me, weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders I saw a lamb standing as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Right, and he came and took the scroll from the right hand. Right, so you can see the beginning there when Christ goes to take the scroll, to open it, to remove all its seals. This is Christ raised to the throne, which actually comes before chapter 1, which is why chapter 4 cannot be the rapture of the church, because that would be impossible. How can Revelation 4 come before Christ being raised to the throne? You see what I'm saying? Because in chapter 4 and 5, chapter 4 and 5 is about the throne room of God, where Christ comes to take the scroll. That happened even before chapter 1, right? So chapter 4 and 5 cannot be after the resurrection of the church and everything, because that doesn't even make sense. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it has to come before. So that's when Christ receives the scroll, and then he's speaking to the church while it's on earth. I'm getting sidetracked there. Anyways, chapter 12, you'll notice, and it says, right, remember it said, repeat over again about many kings and nations and peoples and tongues. And so here we read in chapter 12, verse 1, and a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant with and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. Right, so when it says now as soon as you hear this, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. As soon as you hear the sun, moon, and stars, that's calling us back to when Joseph's dream. Right, where his mother and father and 11 brothers, 11 stars, were to bow down to him. What's that dream about? Christ being raised to the throne, right? This is Christ being raised to the throne. And here's that dream, and here it's referencing that dream about Joseph being raised to the throne, which is a type or a prophecy of Christ being raised to the throne. Right, and hated by his brothers, sold, handed over to the Egyptians, falsely accused, put in prison, and with 2 criminals, and one he gave life, and one he said would not have life, and then he was raised to the throne. This is a prophecy of Christ. So now in verse 3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. That's Satan, but it's also working through Rome, as we're going to see. It's also representative of Rome, Satan working through the nation of Rome. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Right, that was Herod. Remember Herod and the what do they call it, the slaughter of the innocents or something like that. So right, that was done. That was Rome ruling over Israel at that time. And she brought forth a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, right, referring to Christ. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. There it is again, right? Christ raised up to his throne. So in verse 5, you have Christ raised to God's throne, and here you have him again, raised to God's throne, right? Written on one side and on the other side. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Okay, and I'm going to show you 14, I think it is. So here, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Is verse 6. And in verse 14, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness unto her place where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the face of the serpent. So this is the remnant of Israel. Daniel chapter 12 is talking about there, where God was going to, protect the remnant. All right. So we can see this is sort of bracketed. This paragraph is bracketed by these two similar verses that are saying the very similar, same thing, right? So let's carry on now from Revelation 12, verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, which is deceiver the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come the salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. So here's come the salvation, the strength, the kingdom of God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Right, you can see, I think, what passage is that? That even the angels desire to look into, referring to Christ's resurrection, or death and resurrection, because this is when Satan is cast out. So now, if we go to go with this verse of Satan being cast out, if we go to John chapter 12, verse 24. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground to die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. Then let's verse 27. Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour, but for this cause came I unto this hour. Now 31. Jesus says, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out, and I, if I be lifted up, shall draw all men unto me. And this is fulfilled right here in chapter 12. So if judgment is coming to the world, where is Satan being cast out of from and to? He's definitely being cast to the earth, correct? And here in 12, we got here, and the great dragon was cast out, that serpent, that old serpent, is being cast out of heaven, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. Right? God is sending, right, the delusion through Satan. And here's Satan, the one who's coming to deceive the whole world. He was cast out into the earth. He was cast to the earth. When? When was he cast to the earth? And his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, that they loved not their lives unto death. Therefore, rejoice, ye heavens, right? The angels, which they desire to look into, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he know he had but a short time. Right? And when the dragon saw that he was cast onto the earth, he persecuted the woman and brought forth the man-child, which brought forth the man-child. Right? That's Israel. And this is, I believe, is right in between, in 70 AD, that law where Rome took their armies away and some of them got out of the city. This is the one it's talking about. 70 AD. Right? Christ said, well, but if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuse him for our God day and night. Right? And Jesus said, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And the great dragon, verse 9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. and he was cast out unto the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. This is, this is John chapter 12 here. Paul even warned, right? Warned them about the Chaldeans, the Babylonians coming. They could come in their day. They could come in their day. Who's that? Who could come in their day? Rome. Rome. Again, fits. Rome will constantly fit everything in here. Rome is the one. Go read Daniel. The fourth nation is that nation. Rome is that fourth nation. Again, it just adds up, keeps adding up to Rome, no matter how you look at it. Revelation 13 adds up to Rome. That's Rome. Okay, so now, and to the woman were given the wings, and persecuted the woman, and gave, and the woman fled into the wilderness, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood, which after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away with the flood. Right? Let's go to Daniel 9, 26, I think it is. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. Referring to Christ's death. But not for himself, right? It wasn't because of he did anything wrong, it was for us, right? And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. So he's talking about a flood. The flood is referring to a war. It's going to come. Jesus, right? He said, not one stone will be left upon another, right? Destruction of the temple, 70 A.D. This is what it's referring to. The people of the prince, the people are Rome. Right? They came and destroyed the city and the sanctuary. And the end, the flood. Let me see now. Let's go to. Let's try Isaiah 8, 7 to 8, to show that a flood means an army. Now therefore, behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria, and all his glory. And he shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks. And he shall pass through Judah, and he shall overflow, and go over, and he shall reach even to the neck. And the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. Right? So that's talking about the flood is Assyria coming. And then there's Jeremiah 46. Okay, let's start at verse 7. Who is this that cometh up as a flood, whose waters are moved as the rivers? Egypt rises up like a flood. Egypt rises up like a flood, and his waters are moved like the rivers. And he saith, I will go up and will cover the earth. I will destroy the city and the inhabitants thereof. Right? This is an army coming to destroy, to annihilate. That's a flood. So that's what Satan did through Rome, right? Sent the army out to destroy all the Jews. But God said he would protect a remnant from them. And he did. He protected a remnant. Right? And to the woman, this is the remnant. It's not all the Jews. This is just the remnant. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into a place where she is nourished for a time, times and half a time from the face of the serpent, which God did, right? You can read about some of that in Daniel 12, when Michael stands up. And so, yeah, and then the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now he's going off after the Christians, right? This isn't just Israel anymore. Now he's going off with the rest of them that keep the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. The unbelieving remnant that God's going to save doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. They're going to be saved later, right? When Zion, when deliver comes from Zion to turn ungodliness from Jacob. All right? And then I don't know if I'll get into this. I'll get into this in another maybe video, but just to bring up, and then uprises this beast, this 3-in-1 beast, right? That they're all going to worship. And this one, right? He overcomes the saints, and right, this is the dragon through Rome. And the dragon gave him his power. So Rome gave him his power and his seat and great authority. To who? To this 3-in-1 beast. Rome did. Right? You just have this beast rising up out of the sea. And I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Notice that this beast is described exactly like the dragon, the red dragon, in chapter 12. And but it's slightly morphed, it's slightly changed now, right? And that'll happen again. So this beast, this deception, kind of morphs, changes a little over time, just to keep the people deceived. And it says, and the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, his seat, and great authority to this 3-in-1 beast. Rome did, right? I can say that was around 400 AD that happened. And they all worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who was like unto the beast? Who was able to make war with him? The 3-in-1 beast. And it was given, this is what I'm looking for. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life for the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. All right, so now he overcomes the saints. And how do you overcome the saints? You become one with them. Did Rome and the church become one? Then, what do? You get them to eat the things that you sacrifice to your idols. In other words, you're giving them your doctrine. You're taking in your doctrine. Right? This is our doctrine. This is what we give to our God. So, this may help. Like, for instance, Jesus said, I'm the bread from heaven. Well, what's the bread from heaven? Right? It's what came down from heaven. The Word came down from heaven. Jesus said the bread. He is the bread that came down from heaven. So we can see the bread and Word are interchangeable there, or could be at least. But then, we also have, for the disciples, thought Jesus was talking about bread when Jesus said, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees. The disciples thought he was talking about bread, but come to realize that he wasn't talking about bread, but the doctrine of the Pharisees, to be aware of their doctrine, right? Because if you're adding yeast to the bread, right, the bread is the true bread, the true doctrine. Yeast is what you're adding to the true doctrine to puff it up, all right? It's man's doctrine. Christ is the true bread from heaven, the true doctrine from heaven, and we got to be careful about not adding any yeast into the true bread, the Word of God. And Jesus said, eat my flesh. Whoever eats my flesh will live forever. So, eating and taking in stuff to another god is taken in their doctrine. So that's how you overcome the saints. You become one with them, right? Become friends and become one, just like Rome and the church did. And then you get them your false doctrine, which was enforced in 400 AD by Rome when they enforced the Trinity. Right? They first started becoming friends with them with Constantine, right? When he got all the bishops together, because they weren't really sure, because he wanted to know, the understanding of Christ. There seemed to be some confusion in their day. So he brought all those bishops together, and then that's how they started to befriend, right? Through Constantine, started to befriend him. And Theodorus, I think his name is, in 400 AD, he enforced the Trinity. This is our God. Rome, this is our God. Then Revelation 13:18, which works out to even 13:17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. How's this reading the ESV? So that no one may buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So you have a name, and you have a number of his name. Now, this is where a lot of people get sidetracked and get into that numerology or I don't know how to say that. But, it's just basically adding up values of letters to a name. And that's where, that's going outside of the Bible. That's using man's wisdom, intelligence to come up with a name. I mean, you think about it. Man is coming up with this name. He's deciding what the name is by adding up these numbers. But there's all kinds of words and names that add up to 666. So I wouldn't put my stock in the man picking the name. I would not. I mean, I think any Christian would be wise to that. But using only the Bible, this is solved. And it's using the very passages that you went and looked at, that many of you went and looked at. There's only 3 other verses that use the numbers, that have the number 666 in them. And they all actually work together. They all show the same thing. The 2 of them are exactly the same. The one in Kings and Chronicles, speaking about Solomon to Solomon yearly came 666 talents of gold. So in 1 year, he made 666 talents of gold. And both Chronicles and Kings say the same thing. And the other one is about an Adonis, about a man who had 666 descendants. So 666 descendants came out of one man, so to speak, right? And if we read Revelation 13:18, as it reads in the Greek, and it says, "Here the wisdom is." And we look at that, how that's worded, that's the same thing as in John 8:58. Before Abraham was, I is. Or we would say, I am. And, I mean, what Jesus is saying there, before Abraham was, I is, he's saying, I exist. And so, here the wisdom exists. The one having understanding, so it's going to require a certain person or certain persons having understanding. The one having understanding, count the number of the beast. Count means like to add up, like to use pebbles or enumeration, and it's to calculate, compute. the thing is, we don't know what kind of calculation or computing we should be using. That's what we're missing actually in this verse, or in this explanation. We know where the beast is, but we don't know what the calculation is. And number simply means total. I mean, if you go read up number, I mean, it says, when they're counting up all the heads of the people, and there was the number of men were 5,000 or 4,000 or whatever, right? You can simply switch those words, right? The total of men, the number of men was 5,000. The total men was 5,000. That's what it means. It means a reckoned up number. So we're to calculate a reckoned up number. So we're supposed to get a reckoned up number, or come up with a reckoned up number that we're to calculate. Are you hearing? That's the only thing we're to do. That's it. That's all it says. Then it says, this is how it reads: a number for a man is. So in other words, a number, that's the same as, right? Before Abraham was, I is. And it says here, a number for a man exists. And the number of him is 666. So what he's telling you is where you find the formula. And that's the formula to Solomon. I'll say it my way, kind of rephrase it. To Solomon came 666 talents a year, 666 talents of gold in 1 year. Right? Any taxpayer, any merchant would know exactly what this formula is, know exactly, what I made. The government wants to know what I made in 1 year. Right? And 666 in 1 year. Are you hearing it? You can even read Revelation and you can get it. You don't even need the calculation is only a backup to show you that you really got it right, right? Because you got one beast that comes up out of the sea, and it's made up of a leopard, lion, and a bear. And what's a lion, leopard, and a bear? They're beasts. They're vicious, ferocious, wild beasts of the field, right? There's the beast of burden, and then there's these beasts. All right? 3-in-1 beast. That's the 3-in-1 beast. And now it says, right? The name of the beast or the number of his name. So what's the number of his name? 3-in-1. Right? It's 3-in-1. There's 3 beasts, and there's 1 beast that comes out of the sea. And we're to reckon that up. So there's 3 beasts and 1 beast, 3-in-1 beast. How am I supposed to calculate? There's 3 beasts and there's 1 beast. And it says, so 666 in 1, and we got 3-in-1. Calculation, right, is something in 1. And we got 3-in-1 is the calculation. Calculate it, 3-in-1. So the number of his name is 3-in-1. What's the name of him? What's the group of 3? Trinity. What's a 3-in-1? The Trinity. Right? The Trinity. It's so simple. There's not a whole lot of explanation involved in this. You know, so I don't have to go in big, long explanations. You just kind of get it. I'm not very good at explaining things anyways. But this is self-explanatory to me. Very much so. And then you see chapter 12, how it fits right into, the destruction of Israel in 70 AD, which a lot is, that's all I've ever heard from anybody, is that the destruction of Israel in 70 AD was not ever recorded in the Bible after its destruction. But it is right here. I believe it's right here in chapter 12, the destruction of Israel in 70 AD. And then uprises the Trinity, where he goes after, right? He tries to get rid of all the Jews. Can't quite do it, so he's all upset. And he goes off after the Christians with the Trinity. He became one with them through Rome, right? And got them to eat their false doctrine. Got them to eat the Trinity. They made them harlots. Right? They're into harlotry because they three persons who each are a judge, whether they all be in one body or not, whether they all agree or not, are three judges judging, no matter what, right? Still, it's three judges judging. Whether they all agree or not, or whether they all be in one body, if there's three persons who are judging, there's three judges. Three gods, whether they all be in one body or not. And, I know that God's not in a body, so let's not get all twisted, right? We're not to have put any form upon God. And this is what I truly believe. God is not in form. Like, right? He says here, just to get an idea, he says the rainbow is behind his throne. So go up, look up in the sky, and look at his throne. Look at God. God is that light that causes you to see. God is the light that causes you to see the rainbow, right? Because the rainbow was diffracted or split into different frequencies or something, and lengths or whatever, however that goes. But so you see the different colors, but that comes from the one true light, right? Which you cannot see. What I just got sidetracked off on something. What was I saying? Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, so whether God be all in one body or not, right? Just for human understanding of saying this. Or they all agree or not, is still three gods judging, right? God is a judge. Just because, the Trinitarians want to say, yeah, but that's not what our doctrine says. It doesn't matter what your doctrine says. That's the very point I'm trying to make here, is that your doctrine is wrong in what it says. Right? That three persons are one God. That's not true. There's no, that's just somebody saying that. I could say three bananas are one banana. That's my doctrine. No, you can't argue my doctrine. That's my doctrine. That's the Trinity doctrine, or that's my doctrine. Three bananas are one banana. That's not true. I could say that till the cows come home, and it wouldn't make any more true, right? Just because it's a doctrine of mine doesn't make it true. Anybody come up with their... That's how you get cults. Trinity is the biggest cult of them all. This is a Satan worshipping cult, the Trinity. That's the true cult. That's who needs to go for peace. Anyways, there you go. Revelation 12 is history. It started over. When was Satan cast out? A few thousand years ago. He was cast out of heaven and cast to the earth, and judgment has come. And judgment isn't just at the end of the age. God can judge you now. God does judge us. You can read in the Bible. God will judge you. Do you not think he judges us even while we're on the earth and walking, and tries to correct us? Right? There's judgment for correction. There is judgment for punishment. So it depends on, there's more than one kind of judgment, and the purpose of it. But that doesn't mean this is the great white judgment or white great throne judgment or some other judgment of Christ. You know, I think sometimes I guess Christianity sometimes wants to put all this judgment somewhere in the future and it's all going to be settled then. And it will be, but that's just not the only judgment there is. God judged Israel in 70 AD. You tell me that's not judgment? He judged them. And he judges Christians. He judges his household first before he'll judge the rest of the world. We'll look that up. The household of God first. He judges. So anyways, Revelation 12 is history. It's past. Or even Revelation 13. You know, a lot of that is past in history. It happened already. Because Revelation 12 is starting over again from when Christ was raised to the throne. It's so, I don't know, it's so, now that I see this, it's so blatantly obvious. It just slaps you in the face like you can't get out unless you just, you know, obviously the people are just going to be absolutely unwilling to hear any kind of truth. And I've ran into tons of them in the churches. You know, you go to, no, I'm not going to get into all that. But there's a lot who reject this, and you're going to be ostracized, cast out, told never to come back, called Satan, Beelzebub, and everything else, while they are worshiping Satan, the 3-in-1 beast. I don't know, that is something to think about. To think about it is scary. It's very scary. I was going to say, the bitterness is like, it really seems like nobody wants to hear it. Nobody cares about truth anymore. They seem to really love the lie. You know, you just look at politics today and look who they're listening to. And you know they're lying and they're not telling the truth, but that's the person. They love the twisted manipulation. And that's what all I've gotten out of the churches, what I've gone to, is manipulation. Twisted, cannot answer. It's total, it is narcissistic character. Every narcissistic characteristics you're going to find coming out of a Trinitarian when you start talking about their God and showing them that they are wrong. And you bring them the truth that Jesus Christ is God's literal son, equal to God. Very few people can handle that. The Jews couldn't handle it. They wanted it, right? Not only did he break the Sabbath, but he also said that God was his own father, making himself equal with God. The Jews rejected that. The Trinitarians are rejecting that. Jehovah's Witnesses are rejecting it. Oneness and Unitarian are rejecting it. It goes on and on. All these denominations are rejecting the truth of the Word of God. But each one is correct and right. No, Trinitarian is the orthodox of Christianity. It's the cult of Satan. Wake up.